What is the Achilles heel for you? What are the blind spots? Because we often can't see them until it's too late. Maybe you are great at that thing and you can go and solve that problem, but just because you could doesn't mean you should. This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Hello, welcome to this episode. We are going to dive straight in and talk all about the high performance paradox. What is the high performance paradox? How is it affecting you and how is it holding you back from being all that you can be? And also, what can you do about that? What can you do about that to overcome this paradox that you may not even know is keeping you from reaching your full potential? Well, first of all, let's talk about what it is. Okay, in this arena, we are all high performers, right? We are people who are high achievers. We know that we're capable of a lot and we go out there and go for it, right? We just go to do it all. But what happens is, and this is not exclusive to women, but it is quite classic of high achieving women, because we are the female brain, just this is biology, is designed to do things simultaneously rather than one by one. That means that we often will hold compartments and containers for lots and lots of things all the time, which is why you get the classic thing of like the woman who keeps all the plates spinning and so on and so on. I know that's a little bit stereotypical, but it is also kind of true, right? So you can possibly relate to that, especially if you're a high-performing woman who has her own business and is a mother and a wife and a homemaker and all those other things. It doesn't really matter what it is. It can be pets, it can be all these responsibilities, but we often put them on ourselves, okay? So it's not that they're being dumped on us. We choose that, which is what can sometimes feel a little bit crazy, because we think, well, the only reason I have all of this stuff on is my own doing. It's my own choice. And often we would say, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So even if you could cut some of those things out, you probably wouldn't, because actually you want to hold all those things. Okay, I think this might be relatable to a lot of people, a lot of our listeners. The thing when you're a high performer or high achiever, you're ambitious, right? You're ambitious, you're a leader, you are somebody who knows that you are not typical, and you wish, or you might wish, that you could be content with things being quite simple, but you're not. And that's, to the people who are, that's kind of crazy. But to you, that's exhilaration, and you thrive on that. Like, you ride off that. It's exciting for you to have lots and lots of things going on. I hear you. But the paradox here, the thing that trips us up as high performers is, if you've been in my world, or you've followed me for a while, or you've consumed much of my content, you will know by now that I have a bit of a mantra that I often revert to when I'm making decisions, and that is, just because I could doesn't mean I should. I've definitely said that on the podcast more than once before, and I firmly believe that, and I use that and remind myself of that regularly, because if I did, I would be doing even more stuff, and just because I could doesn't mean I should, right? And when you are somebody who has a lot of inspiration, you are a visionary, you are a creative type, which a lot of people in the entrepreneurial arena are, you feel sometimes quite excited by and driven to bring to life the very things that you imagine and think up and can see. And they are often really great. And you know they are, and other people know they are, and you're like, but I've just been given this divine download. I've got this amazing vision. I can see this so clearly. I must do something with this. Now, I always stop myself and I'll go, really? Must I? And the same can go for, so just for people who go, I'm not really like that. That's okay. Here's another example. In business, if you're a business owner, it can show up in the kind of the managing director, the CEO, or the operations type manager role, where you are supposed to be sort of stepping into a level of overseeing and sort of that higher level stuff. But because you built this baby from the ground up, because you put every little piece in place, you do know all the moving parts. So then when someone comes to you with a problem or a need or something, and you're like, I know, I can fix that. And you're riding off the dopamine hit and that gratification of I did it, I fixed it. You jump in and save the day, and it feels good, right? And it can maybe you are great at that thing and you can go and solve that problem. But just because you could doesn't mean you should. And maybe, not even maybe, I can tell you with absolute definite certainty, I see this with clients that I work with, literally, oh my God, and they will, if they're listening, know who they are. When we go, why are you doing that? And they're like, well, because I can. And they think it's quicker. They think, oh, it's quicker because I can just do it and I'm probably the best at it. Right. But if you keep doing that, no one's ever going to get better at it or better than you at it. So when does that end? And actually, the only way to get that task, that piece of expertise delegated on or passed on, is to empower your team, to empower somebody else to be as good at it as you are. But that isn't going to happen if you always jump in and save the day and you always do it. And yes, it might be slower. It might be slower to take the time to show them and train them. It might not be as good as when you do it, but done is better than perfect. And it might be that you got to let them practice and fly their wings. It's like your kids learning to ride a bike, and it's like, oh, I can ride it better than them, I'll just do it for them. No, they'll never learn. Or I'll just go with them all the time, always. You've got to let go at some point and let them get better at it and let them fall off and graze their knee and get back up and go again. And then they'll get great at it. And then maybe they'll be better than you at it. In fact, they probably will. Because if you keep spreading yourself too thinly, you will drop balls, you will drop plates, you will miss things and not do any one thing amazingly. Okay, so this is leading perfectly into explaining this as the high performer paradox. Because you have multiple capabilities, you are multifaceted, you've done and carried and built everything from scratch, because that's what high performers often do. Because you are daring and brave and courageous and willing to try your hand at things and let's call it you are at higher risk of overexerting yourself, and the buzzword is burnout, but yes, burning out. So that means depleting your well-being to a point that makes you sick. So that might be that, and that can be, by the way, physically, biologically, mentally. It can be in all kinds of different ways, right? And before you know it, those other areas are suffering. It may be your physical health. Eventually it will be, guaranteed, if you keep going. But it may be your physical health. It could just be a little ailment at first and then a bigger one, or just a little, niggle in your body somewhere. But it expands. So it could be in your physical health. It's also likely to show up in your mental well-being. Now, whether that's and I actually don't underestimate overwhelm for 1 second. It's a big deal, but it could feel like I'm just a bit overwhelmed. But then what does that turn into? And it can turn into things like anxiety. It can turn into, well, all of the other bigger deal things. But ultimately, if it's affecting your mental clarity, your feelings of positive emotions, your productivity, like all of these things are affecting your mental well-being. So physical, mental, emotional, which throw some hormones into the mix and it's a wild ride anyway, right? That just exasperates things even more. Neurodivergence can exasperate that even more. And then you've got relationships, and relationships are everything. Your personal ones and your professional ones, they are everything. They are essential for our survival as a species, not to mention essential for business to work. So I'm going to say this, and yet, as high performers, so often we push and pour so much of ourselves into the thing that, let's put it in the bubble of business or work, a professional piece, that those other pieces end up getting neglected. And that's the classic, typical one in the context of this audience and this podcast. But let me just say that it's not exclusive to that. You could be a high performer in sport, and maybe it's professional as well, but it may look a little bit different. You may be, a high performer in your art or something that's maybe not for money or for business as such. But again, the point being, if everything is channeled into, or not necessarily one thing, but as a high performer, you are likely to take on too many things, have too many plates spinning, and the paradigm there being you are gifted with the capacity to, or the skill, or the drive, and the wherewithal and willingness to be like that. It is a gift. Honor that gift. But when I say honor that gift, I mean honor that gift in its holistic entirety. Because with every great thing comes a pain point, right? Comes a negative thing, and we've got to balance them out. I was thinking and talking about this with one of my kids earlier, and I said, well, look, with every great invention comes a downside. When we invented the automobile, it meant we could get from A to B much faster, more efficiently. But with that also come the trials and tribulations of automobiles and accidents and all the other things. Like, there's always to every plus, there's a downside. We are leveraging technology now with all the great things it can do. Then there's the things to be mindful of the downside. There's always both, always. But we can optimize the good stuff without the bad thing or the negative flip side of that taking us down. So, as a high performer, you have got these key buckets of professional, your creative outlet, whatever that is, that's usually connected in some way to your purpose, your meaning, and your drive. You've also got your health and well-being, physical, mental, and emotional, and you've got relationships and connection. And if each of those is a bubble and you are feeding all into one and ignoring the others, it eventually will catch up with you. So, as a high-performing audience that you guys are, I want to ask you to just reflect on that and look at where your very gift of being a high performer and high achiever is, what is the Achilles heel for you? What are the blind spots? Because we often can't see them until it's too late. It's like you can't see the label from inside the bottle kind of scenario. So we often we can't see what we can't see. We don't know what we don't know. And if there's one thing I have learned, and you'll probably gauge from anyone I have on this podcast as well, is that none of us, not one of us, is so got it all figured out and together that we don't need support, guidance, external eyes looking in. Like, nobody. In fact, I'd argue the opposite and say actually the higher the achiever, the more support you need to call in. And that kind of support and guidance and outside eyes on your stuff, it changes constantly. And I've said this before on the podcast, you don't need somebody who is better than you at your thing to be able to guide you on that thing. Role models are great. Like, looking at somebody who's got where you want to get or achieved what you want to achieve is always amazing. But the person who is the absolute pro at unlocking or helping somebody with a particular thing might not be your role model. They might be like literally like your fairy godmother. So those magical people are not everywhere in the obvious places. They're not It's not like a like hierarchy stack of like, well, this is the best person in the world, and then they taught this person, and then they taught the person below them, and then they taught. It doesn't work like that. I've said this about sports analogies before. Serena Williams wasn't just, she didn't just have tennis coaches from people who were great at tennis. In fact, her tennis coaches weren't as good as her, but they could see what she couldn't see. And she also had mindset coaching and all these other people that were part of her awesome collective of types of support to enable her to be the best in the world at her thing. So why would she want to be going to someone that's better than her? They've got the crown. She wants the crown. So she needs the support pieces that get under her and push her up, not that are above her. I've seen this as well in the world of coaching on online businesses, where sometimes, and this is sad that this happens, but sometimes if a coachee asks the coach or goes to do something and the coach feels threatened by it because they're like, I've just coached you into being me and now I think you're competition, and they'll almost try and steer you off to a different path because they feel threatened by what you're doing or becoming. Like, I'm really sad that happens, but it does. I've heard somebody just recently tell me that they felt that sense with somebody they were working with. It's time for that. That relationship's done. It's run its course. But yeah, so look at plug in the gaps. And if you don't know what the gaps are, well, we've got assessment tools that can help you with that. So take my assessment on the Born to Be Brilliant website. You'll find it there. It asks you questions that help you to uncover the blind spots and the bits that you're like, oh yeah, I didn't see that. So I've devised a tool specifically for that. But once you've got that intel, then look at, well, what does that mean I need to focus on right now? What are these areas that could do with more work? And then you probably like me, you're well read, you're well versed, you're well developed, you know a lot of stuff. But just because you know it doesn't mean you've embodied it, doesn't mean you live by it, and doesn't mean there isn't another level for you. And we need to be held as we make those shifts and we grow. I, again, as a high performer, will raise my hand and say, yep, I am guilty of thinking I can do it all myself. Because quite often the people closest to us and that we're around most are either they don't get it or they aren't equipped necessarily to hold us or carry us or ask us the right questions to get to that next space, perhaps because they're too close or just because they're too far removed from it. They're not in that world or they don't get it. So finding those people that get it, that get you, that are similar to you as well, really helps to create the connections you need. And then in that you find companionship, you find it normalizes lots of things, but also it helps create connections. Like, I know who'd be perfect for you. You need to go speak to this person. And you're like, I never would have found that person on my own. Thank you. All of those sorts of things that come from that. So getting yourself in those spaces, in those rooms, in those arenas, and you'll know if they're for you or not. I've got myself into spaces and gone, oh, this is really not, this is like amazing people, great people, but just not my energy, just not my vibe, as they say. And I'm like, it's just not for me. And other spaces where I go, oh my God, I feel so at home. I feel so seen. These are my people, right? We all have that. That is available to every single one of us. It's just that depending on who you are and who you are becoming, which is always who you always were, but you know what I'm saying, that could look different. And it will look different at different stages, phases, and seasons throughout life. Who those people are at one stage in your life will look very different to another stage in your life. And as your identity shifts as well, our identities shift multiple times. Who we are in our 20s and who we are in our 30s and who we are in our 40s and who we are in our 50s, who we even are if we are, pre-children, post having had children, children grown up, children little, babies, toddlers, teenagers, adult children, or no children, whether it doesn't matter. These are all different ages, phases, stages in our lives and our experiences. So our identity is constantly shifting. And that means the environments we put ourselves in and the people we surround ourselves with also needs to shift, evolve, and kind of up level and upgrade as you up level and upgrade. And which comes first? Do you up level and upgrade and then find the environment? Not usually. You probably feel a sense of it and that you need it. And then you need to create that, curate that atmosphere, environment, people, connection that is the space that can hold you as you evolve into that next level identity, because it's not an overnight thing like that. Sometimes it can be painstakingly slow, but let me reassure you, if you ever feel like you're literally stuck and wading through treacle, it usually is because you are about to make that up level, because we don't grow from a flourishing place. Like, some people will be upset by that. They're like, what? So I can't flourish? Yes, you can, but it's a cycle. So you'll flourish. It's like literally like plants and flowers, right? You'll flower and blossom and bloom, and then you'll wither and shed, but then you'll bloom again. And that's my point. Like, if your flower is in full bloom, it's fully blooming right now. It's not going to bloom bigger until it's had a chance to recalibrate and then bloom again. And maybe the color will be different. And maybe, maybe it'll be taller or like whatever. Growth comes from pain. I think that's the easiest way of putting it. Growth comes from pain. Those of you who have hit rock bottom and reinvented yourself or reimagined your future or rebuilt something will know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, it does. And, that doesn't have to be dramatic either. Pain could just be a simple discomfort of your current reality. And please, please, please do not apologize if you are uncomfortable with your reality and you think that that makes you a bad person because you, to the outside world, have got it all, right? I'm going to say that again. If you think for anyone outside looking in, you have got it all, for example, nice home, nice cars, have amazing trips and holidays around the world, perhaps I didn't really want to use income as one, but perhaps you earn, let's just say, more than enough to be wonderfully comfortable for the foreseeable, if not forever. Health is good. Like, if you think that anyone outside looking in could say, well, you've got everything you could wish for, you may feel guilty and shame for desiring something more. And you may also think that to feel any feelings of dissatisfaction must make you ungrateful and a bad person. Well, I'm here to tell you that it absolutely does not. There's always another level. And what if from that foundation you've got, because you got there somehow, you did some stuff right, what if going into a new realm of dissatisfaction is the very thing you need to rise into something even greater that can make some form of much bigger impact in the world? Like, no matter how you accomplish what you did that put you into that position that seems so rosy on the outside, something's not satisfying you at your core, and that means there's something more and something bigger for you to do. Who are you to dampen that? Who are you to shush that and shut that down when that could be something that almost enables so many other people to experience a heightened existence? Like, it's easy to use material things as an example, but I know there are people, and I think a lot of people know, that it's quite like, it's not uncommon for people to have all the material things in the world and be miserable, right? So what if outwardly looking in, people can see it looks like you've got it all, but actually inside you're a bit sad and a bit empty? you're not feeling fulfilled, you don't feel like you're particularly living into any real purpose, you maybe relationships aren't where you want them to be, or maybe health isn't how you want it to be, or whatever. If you feel discomfort, let yourself feel the feel and look at what that's telling you. It's okay to go there because it's the place that has to come to go to the next level. So now whenever I hit because I'm one of these, the bar is up here and then I don't even get to the bar, but before I even hit it, I've raised it. And what happens there is we almost feel constantly in dissatisfaction because it's never good enough. We're never enough because we actually are, but we're always shifting the enough higher and higher and higher. Yeah, I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's good in that it keeps you very driven, right? And it keeps you moving, but it doesn't always feel good. But if you feel that, and when I felt that dissatisfaction feeling creeping in, I've got very good now at going, what does this mean? And instead of going, oh God, this feels rubbish, and sinking into like a down in the dumps place, I'll often laugh. I literally smile and chuckle and almost I often look up as if I'm going, yeah, all right, universe. I know something good's coming. There's another level of breakthrough. And pain comes before a breakthrough. So I hope that reassures anyone else that's been there or is feeling that at the moment. So the high performance paradox is exactly that. Just because you could doesn't mean that you should. However, as a high performer, you probably take on the world and its uncle, and you probably bite off more than you can chew, although you will let everyone else think that you can just handle it all just fine. But inside, something's telling you something's got to change, something's got to shift because there's more to you. And you think, well, how could there possibly be more to me? I'm literally doing all the things ever, but and you know who you are. And if this is going over your head, then it is not where you are yet, and that's okay. Or maybe it just isn't who you are, and that's okay too. You maybe know someone who is, and they may need your support right now. But high performers, this paradigm is real. And I hope I have shone a massive, great big searchlight on it to help you see where it makes sense for you. Do my quiz, little assessment is going to help spotlight that for you. And just know that you can move into that next level and overcome this paradigm because you need to, because there's more to you. And you know that you're here for something bigger, to play a bigger game than you have so far. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I am always here for the conversation, so please do drop me a message and tell me what you like best about this. And also, if there is something that you would love for me to cover on the podcast, I want to hear from you as well. Maybe it will be something I can do an episode on. So you take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright because you were born to be brilliant.